We are now recording. Thank you everyone for joining us today. This is the Town of Bridgewater Hazard Mitigation Plan, public listening session, September 27, 2021, and presented by Old Colony Planning Council. And we are joined by our town manager of Bridgewater, Michael Dutton.
All right, thanks, Elijah, and certainly thank you to Old Colony Planning Council for endeavoring to work on Bridgewater's hazard mitigation plan. I think Old Colony OCPC has had a really good long history of dealing with our hazard mitigation plan and different iterations, and we're happy to have you do it for us now. So I appreciate that, and certainly our representative to OCPC, Sandra Wright, for helping shepherd it along. Tonight is designed to be a listening session, and so any comments, any emails, I'm sure Elijah will go over that, but it's designed to be a listening session so that we get a better sense of the types of hazards that we should be on the lookout for, and should try to address in the permanent hazard mitigation plan. So with that, Elijah, I will turn it back over to you with our thanks.
All right, thank you very much. So at Old Colony Planning Council, we assist cities and towns in planning for present and future needs, utilizing our local knowledge, technical expertise, and regional collaboration. I'm joined here tonight by my director, Lori Muncie, and myself, Elijah Romulus, and we will be assisting the town as Michael just stated. So some of the things that Old Colony Planning Council does is we serve 17 communities in the South Shore through natural resource and environmental planning, which is probably the majority of the work for tonight, but we also do transportation planning, comprehensive land use planning, economic development, geographic information system services, as well as the area agency on aging. So some of the core team members part of this that have been working either behind the scenes or directly would be the Town of Bridgewater staff, including Michael Dutton, Azu Antonero, Jennifer DeBois-Briand, Jasmine Farinacci, Stephen Solari, Chris Del Monte, Michael McDermott, Jonas Kozlauskas, and Emily Williams. What is an HMP plan? Hazard mitigation planning reduces loss of life and property by minimizing the impact of disasters. It begins by identifying natural resource disaster risks and vulnerabilities that are common locally. After identifying these risks, long-term strategies are developed for protecting people and property from similar events. It's important that the town have a hazard mitigation plan in place to maintain eligibility for funding from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, also known as FEMA. So just to kind of go over some of the reasons we're here, mostly it's to work with the resiliency building as it relates to climate change and the effects of climate change that we experience in the Commonwealth. So Massachusetts, some of the observed climate changes include, a temperature increase of 2.9%, 2.9 degrees rather, since 1895. And while that sounds like a small number, on the grand scale, it does, affect, coastal flooding, sea level changes, and a myriad of other effects to the climate. And and such. Also, the growing season has increased by 15 days since 1950, sea level rise by 11 inches, and then heavy precipitation by 55% since 1958. And these are sourced by the Climate Science Special Report, as well as NOAA. Some other climate projections by the end of the century. Changes in precipitation, 18% increase in consecutive dry days, and 57% increase in days with greater than 1 inch of rainfall, and then 7.3 inches annually of additional rainfall. And while you might say, how do we have increased consecutive dry days and at the same time we have increased rainfall? The idea is that there's or the science is that there's more increased and localized events. So there'll be more droughts, but then there'll be periods of intense rain that kind of makes up for that, just as our Earth is trying to kind of correct itself. Rising temperatures also include a 10.8% increase in annual temperature. Some other things, 4 to 10.5 feet along the Massachusetts coast of sea level rise, and just for extreme weather like nor'easters and whatnot, an increase in the frequency and magnitude. So the change in the temperature and the climate then also leads to a change in energy use and demand. So more warm winter days means less heating demand. That can be a good thing. Goes down by projected to go down by 26.2% by the 2090s. But then on the other side of that is more warm summer days and more cooling demand. So that's projected to go up 178%. So you can imagine what kind of stresses that can do to the grid system, with people trying to cool their homes and different facilities and whatnot. Impacts from increasing temperatures include public health threats as it relates to heat-related illnesses and mortality, an increase in pests. They have been documented, levels of increase as it relates to mosquitoes and ticks because of the extended warm seasons, and changes to the growing seasons. So, farmers and agriculturalists will have to figure out ways to kind of circumvent the changes in the season. The economic sectors also, more heat-related illnesses leads to more sick days, and that affects the workforce. A reduced crop production, as I mentioned, impacts livestock and fisheries and those that work in those industries. And then some of the things that you might see on a day-to-day basis is the infrastructure demands. So as I mentioned, the grid system, stress on train tracks, roads, bridges, and other critical infrastructure. So impacts from changing precipitation conditions, as I mentioned before, just the changes to agriculture, increased risk of flooding, reduced snow cover for recreation and tourism, potential increase in the frequency of episodic droughts are some of the things that can be related. And so, some direct things that we've actually seen in 2021, a recent article showed that, 2021 in Massachusetts has been warmer and wetter. Boston had the warmest and third wettest summer on record. Worcester had the fourth wettest summer, 11th warmest on record. July itself was the wettest that the state has ever witnessed in history. The extreme weather events in terms of storms and continued high temperatures are caused by climate change, as the Northeast of the United States has experienced the most significant temperature increases in the nation. Research has demonstrated a link between climate change and a large family of extreme recent events. And an associate director of the Climate System Research Center, said, and extreme precipitation events are a hallmark of a warming climate. And to the right, you see we have a survey that I will be sharing later, and in that survey, I had asked some of the local residents to just share some pictures of events that have happened in Bridgewater that they were able to capture. And so I'm not sure if those are specifically 2021, but just to show kind of the idea of the real kind of effects of these things that are happening. And so I wanted to go over some of the goals that we have in Bridgewater. So for this hazard mitigation plan, we wanted to have a list of steady goals that will kind of direct the plan in general. And so that's pretty much what we're gonna go over tonight. It was just a review and a list of the goals that we have for this. And so I'm gonna be reading those off, and then afterwards, if anyone has any questions, I can share the ways to contact. And so the first goal is to be prepared to reduce the loss of life, property, infrastructure, and cultural resources throughout the town from natural disasters throughout a multiple hazard mitigation program that involves coordination, planning, education, and capital improvements. That's the first goal. The second goal is to incorporate hazard and climate change vulnerability into capital planning, master planning, and facilities management functions, and implement proactive solutions to adapt to climate change. The third goal is to investigate, design, and implement projects that will reduce and minimize the risk of flooding. As you saw in the pictures before, there's definitely a need for that. To organize and prepare to provide adequate shelter, water, food, basic first aid to displaced residents, evacuation procedures, etc., to residents in the event of a natural disaster, to inventory supplies at existing shelters and develop a list of and storage requirements, and establish arrangements with local and neighboring vendors for supplying shelters with food and first aid supplies in the event of a natural disaster. And that's the fourth goal. And the fifth and final goal, to wrap up our list of goals, is to increase awareness of hazard mitigation activities among town officials, private organizations, businesses, and public through education and outreach activities. And so these list of 5 goals will then be part of, a set, so we go over the goals, then there's objectives, and then there's an action plan to then see how to realize these set goals. And the goals pretty much act as kind of like a, direction for this plan. And so I really want folks to take the survey that is in relation to this project, this plan. It takes about 10 minutes. If you have a phone that scans with a QR code, you can go ahead and take a picture, or scan the barcode, or you can go to this link right here. It'll lead you to the survey, ask you some questions about Bridgewater, your experiences in the town as it relates to hazard mitigation, thinking about the town's preparedness, what are some of your ideas? And we've been checking the survey results on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, and we have been having a a decent amount of respondents, but definitely want to encourage people to take this because this is probably the best way to get your ideas, cemented, so that it can be looked at and incorporated into the plan. So yeah, so I wanted to just kind of stay there specifically, and then if you have friends, I would say just share it on any social media you have, or send an email, a text. It'll definitely help in having a robust response, if I am to use some planning jargon. So yeah, thank you for that. As I said, it wasn't going to be too long. This is really just a first introduction into what the hazard mitigation plan is. The contact is your Bridgewater staff, Jasmine Farinacci, the assistant town planner. Works in the office with the director, Jennifer. And the number to reach her at is 508-697-0950, extension 1248, or jfarinacci@bridgewaterma.org. So that is all that I had for us this evening. I can open up the floor if anyone has any questions or comments before we kind of wrap up. What I'm going to be doing is, as I said in the beginning, for anyone that missed it, I'm recording this right now. I'm going to be sending this to Jasmine after the recording has been uploaded, so that it can be uploaded to Bridgewater's YouTube page and can be shared with other folks to get the word out. This project is going to be going throughout the fall and winter, so definitely get the word out about specifically the survey. So I'm actually going to just go up back to the survey and stay there for kind of folks just to look at that. But that's all I got for this evening. Yeah, so if anyone has any comments.
We will, thanks Elijah. I just wanted to note from the town of Bridgewater, we will post the QR code and the survey information again on our Facebook page and our website, just so that people have that information again, just to keep pushing that out there. We'll try to keep doing that on a regular basis. Is there a last date, Elijah, that you're accepting surveys, or is it just an ongoing process?
It's an ongoing process.
Okay, perfect.
Elijah,
Yes.
I know one question that will be asked when this goes out is regarding COVID. How are we handling this, and as far as places that will be putting people in bigger crowds. I know that this is still an ongoing problem. Also, how do we deal with the handicapped, hearing impaired, and the blind?
I mean, that's a great comment in question. So what we'll do is, as it's being recorded, I'll definitely take down that question. We'll go back into our planning procedure, and we could even add that as like an objective as it relates to the goal. I believe one of the either the second goal, so the fourth goal, pretty much as it relates to shelter. I think this one can definitely touch on that question that you asked, and it's just even with COVID, COVID itself is kind of a result of our changing climate and zoonotic diseases that are spreading. So that is a good question. We are working on that. We have a draft plan in place as well, and we can always I'll make sure that I look at and see specifically where we have some information regarding that, and I can send that your way. Or have, if you have your contact information, I would just say specifically, email Jasmine, and then she can kind of be the mediator for us.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Anyone else? Well, if not, then thank you everyone for joining us this evening. This is just the beginning of the project. Once we get a final kind of a final draft, we can post it to the town website, and then we'll be able to have Bridgewater in a better place for resiliency as it relates to climate change. So thank you again, and to everyone, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elijah.
No problem.